Hello and welcome back to Adapulse, the community-funded news channel, keeping you up to date with all the news and emerging projects that are in and around the Cardano ecosystem. And remember, because we're community-funded, there is no coin shilling, we don't take paid promotion, we don't really even discuss token price. We're just here to disseminate information, deliver it to you in a way that's easy for you to understand. All stuff about crypto and Cardano. We're just here to give you the facts as they are. And so we got an interesting article here today, which is that decentralization is often an overrated and misunderstood concept. We use the word decentralization a lot, and we actually use it to back up our own arguments half the time. So, and this is from our veteran writer, almost celebrity even, LiberLion. And he does a lot of technical and well-researched articles. So this is going to be an interesting one to go through, because I think there are some real misconceptions that need to be addressed, and maybe some opinions need to be made. But anyway, remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell button so you can get notified as soon as we've got content available. And remember, share far and wide. Remember, we're an educational platform. We want to reach as many people as possible. But I'm Josh from ATM Stakepool, your presenter for Adapulse for today. Let's just crack straight on with the article. Do you know the difference between a decentralized and a distributed network? I mean, I'm not going to lie. I thought there was a small difference, but now I've learned the difference, is a lot greater than I, or even probably LiberLion thought when he started this article. Now, development models and network architectures are two completely independent dimensions. So we're going to explain the differences between sort of both concepts from the point of view of the system's infrastructure. So check this image. You can see that there are three basic possibilities of structures for network systems. You have centralized, decentralized, and distributed. Now, you can see in a centralized system, all users are actually connected to a central network owner, or like in this case, like maybe a server. And the central owner stores data and information that is accessed by the connecting users. Now, a centralized system is really easy to set up, and it can be developed quickly, presenting speed in your transactions. Think Visa as a good example of that. But this system has obviously an important limitation in terms of its functionality and security. It's basically a single point of failure. So if the server fails or attacked or whatever, the system's either going to not work correctly, or the users won't be able to access the data. Now, unlike these, there are distributed and decentralized systems. So this is what comes to mind when you think of blockchain systems. But there's two different working systems. Decentralized is a single processing point transferred to several clients, while distributed refers to multiple processing points transmitted between all of them, looking more like a mesh network, I guess. What is a decentralized network? Now, obviously, decentralized systems don't have a central owner. So what instead they have is multiple clients. So each of them typically stores a copy of all the resources that the users can access. So in the case of Cardano, every node has a copy of the entire blockchain. So a decentralized system is more fault tolerant than a centralized one, since there is no, single point of failure, or even more than that. In fact, every single node could go down. But if you've got that one copy of Daedalus still running, the whole network can be rebooted and just carry on as normal. And that's pretty freaking mental. Now, decentralized networks use a variety of different connection points, or nodes, as we call them, to make information available. But they do not have a distributed decision-making power at each node. What is a distributed network? So a distributed system also doesn't have to have a single central owner. But the key feature of distributed networks, which is different to decentralized, is the use of equally powerful connection points in the production of information. So in a distributed system, users can have equal access to data, although you can have user privileges. So some have access and others can't. The best example of a big distributed system would probably be the internet itself. But however, distributed networks can actually be centralized, unlike decentralized networks. The topography of the distributed network can be centralized if the production is concentrated to just a few producers. differences between distributed and decentralized networks. Now, I want to add something in here quick that LiberLion didn't put in the article, because as a pool operator, I run my relays, which are essentially nodes. Now, in the programming of these nodes, I have what's called a topology, and that has a list of all the relays that I'm connected, the other relays, the other nodes that I'm connected to. So I just wanted to make that clear, because the main difference between distributed and decentralized comes down to where the decision is made and how the information is sent through the various nodes in the system. In a distributed network, its topography allows the distribution of data and decision making, and that's distributed evenly across all servers, which isn't the case, obviously, in decentralized networks, sounding a bit more like Cardano. But essentially, in a distributed network, it just wants us to send all the information out evenly and exactly the same. But this isn't to be confused, with the possibility of centralizing a distributed network, as I mentioned a minute ago. Now, most blockchains have adopted distributed systems, known as distributed ledger technology, or DLT, as it's known. Now, there was a blog IOHK made, and it was the article, "The University of Edinburgh and IOG introduced the Edinburgh Decentralization Index." And they talk about the approach of decentralization in the production of information. We actually did a video and an article, Blocksplain did it. So the links to all that are going to be all around me, so you can check those. But here's a little snippet from that blog that I actually want to talk about. So check this out. Networks are often structured as centralized, distributed, or decentralized. A decentralized network security increases as the number of participants increases. The same outcome cannot be achieved on centralized or distributed networks. With most blockchains claiming to be decentralized, it's hard to determine each claim's validity. Any assertion on decentralization remains highly subjective. Can a blockchain be truly decentralized if a minority of its validators is responsible for mining or minting a majority of blocks? What quantifies as decentralization? What quantifiable standard of decentralization can be deemed objective? Why not read who knows? So there's quite a cool exchange on Twitter between different members of the Cardano community, and this issue was raised. So let's go through some of their tweets. Let's have a look. Here, Matthew Benkort, that's technical director of Cardano Foundation, sparked this debate with a tweet. Minor controversial suggestion of the day. Well, you pretty fucking underrated that one. Can we all stop saying decentralized and start saying distributed instead? At least when it comes to Cardano. That'd be great. So, you've got Alessandro Conrad, who's the co-founder of SpaceBuds, operator of Cardano Stake Pool and creator of the Nami wallet, which you've probably all used. He said, sorry, disagree, and presented a query screen of the ChatGPT. So take a look at that. I'll let you read that at your leisure. I'm not going to go through it all. And Matthew Benkort came back with, I don't agree at all with the last part of that definition. A distributed system is a type of decentralized system, not the other way around. A distributed system is precisely a system without central authority where all nodes of the system are on equal foot. And Alessandra Conrad, so would you say decentralized is a subset of distributed? What do distributed systems have decentralized systems don't have? And Matthew fired back with, the ability for each node to run as a client or server. In a decentralized system, you can't generally become a server. You can only be a client of some existing server. Any node can, in principle, do the job of any other. There's only one Cardano node. Matthew Plomin, so founder of Mihen, we did a video on him, check out the link, founder of the USDM stablecoin. So he said, regarding the initial statement, why and in what context? And so Matthew answered, when talking about systems and networks, for example, instead of Cardano as a decentralized platform, one should say Cardano is a distributed platform. It's kind of odd that the term decentralized got so massively adopted. Now, Smaug, aka Remy to some, but we all know him as the pool operator and founder of Pool PM, which I use all the time, and NFTCDN. So he said, I don't feel like distributed includes the notion of permissionless. And Matthew came back with, Decentralized doesn't either, though. Both require consensus, coordination, but they do not restrict how consensus is achieved. That is another dimension. Here, I'm mainly referring to networks. LiberLion asks, decentralization implies permissionless. Is it possible a decentralized network being not permissionless? I think permission is given by a central authority. And Matthew answered him and said, no, it does not. Take Netflix or YouTube. They are decentralized system architectures and absolutely not permissionless. You can't run your own YouTube server. Matthew actually went on with quite a long and detailed thread, which I'm not actually going to go through now. I will include a link in the description below, along to a lot of the other tweets, because it is an interesting discussion. And some of the things he said here are interesting. So I do recommend you clicking on that link and reading that thread. Final words. So to close this off, here's a tweet from Dr. Michael Leisenfeld, and explains the idea. Cardano is distributed on 3,000 validator nodes. Cardano is decentralized to around 38 groups on average, with a 20 group 51% majority, or MAV20 as it's known. Now, MAV stands for minimum attack vector, so it takes 20 entities to hold 51%. But he's actually referring to a calculation that he himself made. Check this out. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend that I understand this. But it's something he made or designed on the K effective. And what he said is the average resulting decentralization or effective decentralization, taking into account groups or entities of stake pools. One group could be running multiple stake pools, which lowers the realistic effective decentralization. So that's where we're going to end it for today. So do remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell button so you can get notified as soon as we've got content available. And remember, the full article can be found online, along with a lot of other articles that we don't actually have time to make videos for. So I'm Josh from ATM to Stake Pool, your presenter for Adapulse for today, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.